For those that don't know me, I'm John Ellis. I'm the Operations Director for the IEP. And today I'm pleased to introduce Chris Mercer here, who's a fellow of the institution. And I'm just looking here, glancing down at my notes. He's worked in a variety of software engineering roles for quite a few organisations, including the UK Parliament, EU Parliament, Facebook, Sony, and a few TV channels worldwide. So you've got around a bit there, Chris. He's also a volunteers his time to mentor university students and is part of the STEM Ambassador Programme. So today, Chris will be discussing the need for more women in the industry, and in particular, the top 5 misconceptions that discourage women from getting into the technology careers. And I had a quick look up today, and in 2022, 92% of developers in our industry were men. That's a bit worrying, actually. Yeah. And I noted one of my favourite films for various reasons, but in recent years, the film Hidden Figures has shown how 3 particular women, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, wasn't it? Yes, how they didn't just break the ceiling barrier, glass ceiling for women, but also obviously for the racial barriers as well. So on that, I'm going to hand over to Chris. You can get rid of my face, and we'll go from there. All over to you, Chris.
Hopefully you can see the presentation. Yeah?
Yes, Chris, we can.
Excellent. Excellent. So before we begin, there is a bit of an elephant in the room here, right? So I'm a man. So there is a question about why I'm talking about women in tech. So according to my statistics that I've got, which is I think a bit more broad than the statistics that John was just talking about, only 17% of ICT specialists are women. Okay. Therefore, logically, about 83% are men. So it follows that if you want to address that balance, men have an obligation here. So who am I? So as John just gave me a brief introduction, I'm born in 1978. My father was a software engineer for a very long time. I've got a degree in computing, currently working on my MBA as well. I worked in IT since 2001, currently a software team lead or tech lead, chartered IT professional, chartered engineer, fellow of the Institution of Analysts and Programmers. I'm also a stutterer, so if I pause when I speak, it's not a glitch in the feed, it's me, so just bear with me. I'm a geek, like all kinds of geeky things. I play guitar, and I'm a bit of a taekwondo enthusiast, just to give a bit of background. So why do I care about this? So I mean, I've worked in the software industry for a long time, and in my view, it's potentially the most important industry in the world at the moment, as software touches absolutely everything. And so in my mind, how can such an important industry kind of work with society as a whole if it doesn't represent the society which it affects so greatly? We've also got a shortage of people in IT at the moment anyway, and as women are 51% of the planet's population, and as we saw, there's a very big disparity, mix of gender here. There's some real work that needs to be done. I mean, a bit anecdotal perhaps, but some of the best people that I've worked in the industry are women. More on that later. And also diversity, which in this context means different points of view. This is a great thing. As I say, software just touches every aspect of the world, and so you have to have those different points of view, otherwise it will get lost. So there's a book, and I always forget the author's name, which is a bit annoying, but it's called Invisible women. And I've got a copy in the next room, but I won't go and get it to remind myself of the name. But in this, the author raises the point that because so much of societal stuff is kind of done by men, there's always going to be an inherent bias in there. You know, she's quick to point out that largely it's not a deliberate thing, it's just an inbuilt thing. As you know, I myself, as a white straight man, have a particular point of view because of the life that I've lived, and so different points of view would only strengthen the software that, as I say, touches the whole of society. So because there's this imbalance, I argue that men have an obligation to help us, as we're the majority in this field, and can therefore help to bring about change faster. So this is my attempt to help. I've done this talk for a few different orgs across the last like 2 years or so, and they've always kind of provoked some kind of really good feedback and comments and questions and stuff. So hopefully this will do that too. So let's talk about why, like based on the research that I've done. So why are there fewer women in tech? So let's start off with some statistics. So the kind of top reasons that I found was that they cannot name a woman role model in IT who inspires them. There's too little information working in tech. Tech's not creative enough. They feel that it's important to do work that makes the world a better place. And obviously, the elephant in the room is that it's too male dominated. So my mission in this talk is to try and either correct or counter those reasons, or talk about why they might not quite be right. Let's put it that way. So problem number one: cannot name a woman role model who inspires them. 84% of women said this was a concern for them. So who was considered the first programmer? Arguably Ada Lovelace. So she was the only legitimate child of Lord Byron and his wife, Lady Wentworth. She was often ill, so got into maths. She became acquaintances with some big names such as Michael Faraday, Charles Dickens, Charles Babbage, names like that. So obviously we know that Charles Babbage invented the difference engine, the first ever computer. He was invited to give a seminar at the University of Turin. A spectator transcribed the lecture into French, who asked Ada to translate it into English, which she did, but she also put notes which were added to the translation. In one of her notes called Note G, she described an algorithm to compute Bernoulli numbers. What's a Bernoulli number? Absolutely no idea. I'm not a maths guy. But they look very, very complex. And the fact that she could do that from whilst translating a lecture from French into English is absolutely remarkable. So that was arguably, but I'd say, almost definitely the first example of a computer program. So other role models. So the ENIAC was a very large and incredibly buggy predecessor to the general use computers that we use today. It came about after World War II using levers and cables. Its operators were women, as at the time men were kind of sent to war. So they're Jean Jennings, Marlene Westcott, Ruth Lichterman, Betty Snyder, Frances Billas, and Kate McNulty, the first four of which are pictured to the right. Another good role model, Dr. Evelyn Boyd Granville, known for her work in developing computer software for NASA's Mercury and Vanguard space programs. Her software helped to analyze satellite orbits for the Project Mercury missions, and that program is known for the very first human spaceflight program for the United States. Another fantastic woman role model, Catherine Johnson. She was immortalised in the book and movie Hidden Figures, and in 2015 received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, using computers to compute calculations to ensure safe space travel. So next, a very well-known one who I must say has been immortalised in a Lego set, which to me I think means more than presidential medals and stuff like that. But Margaret Hamilton was the director of the software engineering division of the MIT Instrumentation Lab, who developed the onboard flight software for the Apollo space program. There, next to the source code of the Apollo project in 1969. Of course, Apollo 11 was what put Neil Armstrong and co on the moon. So that was done by Margaret Hamilton. Another one, Dr. Sudha Murthy, was among the first, if not the first, women in India to major in engineering. She kind of stood up and pushed back to the kind of boss of telco, and convinced him to give her an interview, and was hired, and went on to co-found the Infosys Foundation. So through her work, it's helped to build multiple hospitals and over 3,500 libraries in India. So again, absolutely amazing. Rear, and this is quite a title, right? Rear Admiral Dr. Grace Murray Hopper was the inventor of COBOL. Now, COBOL itself, love it or hate it, right? It is still a thing in business these days, and to me, it's just the foundation of the modern business world. So that was her work, and she found a bug in working to the Mark II computer at Harvard, which is where we get the term bug for software issues from these days. So every time we say bug, we kind of call back to her. Last but not least, Barbara Liskov. So for kind of hardcore software engineers, we talk about the solid principles, which is a set of best practices. The L standing for the Liskov substitution principle, which I could explain, but it will bore you all, and it's a bit geeky for this. But anyway, she's won all kinds of awards, including the ACM AM Turing Award, which is seen as the Nobel Prize of Computing. So again, another fantastic, amazing woman role model there. The IAP does have a page that talks about these and others too. There were loads and loads that I found. So I think that hopefully you will agree that I've shown that there are indeed female role models out there in tech, and they're amazing. So problem 2, not enough information on women working in tech. So 61% said that they felt this was an issue. So it did used to be the case, but I don't think it's the case now, especially in the last year or two, where there's been a real drive, quite correctly so, I think, trying to get more women into tech. This talk being just a very kind of small part of that. But there are, I mean, as of the time when I did this, there's about 3 billion results, including things like conferences specifically for women, organizations for women, various facts and figures around that, and talks being put on by organizations like the IAP to kind of try and highlight some of these things. So I mean, a few highlights for me are on screen now. Do go and have a look there. Really interesting. So problem 3 was saying that from the outside, it didn't look like software kind of roles were creative enough, which is important to quite a lot of women out there. So I asked some friends who work in software who happen to be women. I asked them, how is your role creative? I did get a few results back. The kind of best ones I put on the next slide. So Rita, who's a colleague of mine at my last role, she was a senior software dev working in a medical software company. As you can see, she says that it gives her a chance to think creatively. Another friend of mine, Rosie, who's a software tester, who was in the same company in actual fact, again says that it does require her to think creatively. And then Marie, who was quite a few jobs ago now, but I still keep in touch with. I mean, she's the first to concede that her job's not particularly technical, but it is still a job in the technology industry, and she brings her kind of communication skills and her problem solving skills to the role, and really enjoys the job. Like, she's been in that job for 13-14 years, so she loves it. So therefore, I would say that the software industry is indeed creative. So problem 4, a lot of the women there said that they want to do work that makes the world a better place. So what I would say to that is I completely agree. I myself, when I apply for new roles, I emphasize uh, roles in companies that do contribute to society. So, for example, I've done software for local schools, software for local council, software for UK and EU parliaments to live stream meetings. So, in fact, if you ever were to watch an EU Parliament stream on Facebook, which I'm sure you all do. That's my software that does that. And also in my last role, medical software to improve patient outcomes. It was all about trying to find the best, most appropriate medicines to treat different things. So, as I say, for all of those roles, the main thing that attracted me to them was because they were kind of giving something back. So therefore, yes, it is possible. And there is, in the UK software industry, there is a professional society which represents these professionals, being the IAP. Obviously, I mean, being a fellow myself, it is a group that I'm proud to be part of. So a bit of a kind of promotion here, but it like its main goals. One of its main goals is the imperative to make society a better place, and how software can do that. As I say, software will touch just all aspects of society. You know, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say the world runs on software. Therefore, as software engineers, we have a duty to kind of improve that software and make society a better place. So, I mean, I do have a bit of a conflict of interest disclaimer there. I am a fellow of the IAP, and I realise that this talk is being organised by the IAP. But to be quite frank, those goals are why I joined in the first place. And there's the website there. So all that is to say, you can make the world, or you can help make the world a better place. The Professional Society for Software Engineers in the UK has it as one of its main stated goals. I've done it myself. I've chosen jobs that will make the world a better place in some small way. So now on to the next issue, the fact that it's too male dominated. So that I'd say, yep, it is. But I have three main points here with this. Okay. So the first point that I'd say to women is that we absolutely need you. You are valuable. You bring different points of view, different life experiences. It's so valuable. The best companies, the ones that people actually want to work for, realize and support that. And please do not let a bad experience put you off. Any such company will fail sooner or later, and I would encourage you to kind of be a pioneer, to kind of set that example, to lead by doing. Point number 2 to men. I mean, hopefully you would agree that we do need more women in this field. Therefore, we need you to step up and to address any issues and set the example, push back against any discrimination that you can see, show that it's not acceptable, and to help women to be the change. And then point 3 to everyone. So I would say actually it's a technical imperative at the moment that we get more women involved. So why do I say that? What is the hottest technology and software at the moment? So I would say artificial intelligence or machine learning. Okay, so did you know? And for some reason my computer's just decided to pause while it goes to the next slide. There we go. So did you know the big players in AI and ML are very, very careful to make sure their technology is inclusive, to the extent that it's called out specifically in the documentation around it. So I mean, I'm going to talk about Microsoft now. Microsoft is the stack that I've worked in for a long time. All the big AI players have the same kind of thing going on, but the one that I'm most aware of is Microsoft. So I'm going to use them as an example. So Microsoft had this thing called the Ether Committee, which is the AI ethics and effects in engineering and research, the Office of Responsible AI, or Aura. So together they work closely with responsible AI advocates and teams to hold responsible AI principles in their day-to-day work. They have 6 core principles, one of which is inclusiveness, which is to strive to be intentionally diverse and inclusive, to ensure the full spectrum of communities are covered. And after all, women are 51% of society. So without women, how can they possibly be inclusive, and how can the AI software possibly hope to represent society as a whole? So to kind of sum up a bit, to women, we need you. Don't be afraid. Don't let small-minded people put you off. There are many men who kind of want to see this change and to want to help you succeed. To men, think about your words and actions. Be an ally, nurture and support. Together we can do this, and make the makeup of our software teams more representative of society, and produce software that gives better outcomes for society as a whole. And yeah, that's my slide. Does anyone have any questions at this stage?
Paul.
Hey, Paul,
Thanks.
go.
Hi. Thanks, Chris. What great a great presentation. It's funny you mentioned anecdotal evidence. I've got the same anecdotal evidence as well. Whenever I've worked with women developers, they've always been well above average, and most of them have been excellent. So I don't know if it's the case that you've got to be excellent to get those positions in the first place. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
So I would say that is true to an extent, because I mean, thinking about some of the women that I work with right now and some of the women who've worked in my past job, they have all been absolutely extraordinary. And to be honest, a lot of the guys in the team, perhaps not so much. So I think that it would need to it needs to be a grassroots thing. We need to get more and more women involved. And to be quite frank, if some of the kind of less skilled men were deselected in favour of women, that would only lead us to the outcome that we want, to have that mix, right? So I would agree with you. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, I think the just picking up on something you got there is that I think the book you were thinking of, is it Caroline Credo Perez?
Yes, thank you. Every time I forget her name. Like, I'll see if I can find.
I will put a link in the chat for that.
Yes, please.
And
It's a really good book.
And being a big fan of Grace Hopper, and you were mentioning COBOL, and a lot of my time was spent in local government where we used COBOL to the nth degree in all the councils I worked at. And I was just checking, there's currently 850 billion lines of COBOL code still in use today. That's a lot of code for a language. Don't take it wrong, I haven't written anything in 20 years, so but I do know it's still out there. So
and she helped, make that. It's just amazing. I mean, there's a few stories that I've got. One that kind of springs out was she was trying to explain what a kilobyte looked like, or was it a byte? But to an engineer, they were working on satellite kind of feeds, and in the end, she worked out how long a piece of wire should be to represent the amount of time it takes for that amount of data to move through the air. And so she kind of held it up and said that is a byte. So like, just that mind is just amazing.
Yeah. Vidya, can see your hand up there.
Yes, thanks, John. Thanks, Chris, for an enlightening webinar. I was thinking about screening. We have these for inclusivity nowadays. I think they're anonymized, don't they? Anonymize so that the right talent is employed. So is that something you would advocate for? In terms of including people from all walks of life, including women, obviously.
Sure. So I mean, what I think about that is, and it is a difficult question, because then you start to talk about to coin to for want of a better phrase, positive discrimination. And actually, I think I'm okay with that, because things have swung kind of so far the wrong way. We actually need to take proactive steps to help it swing back. So yeah, I think we should be encouraging women to kind of apply, and bear in mind the fact that they may not have the background that the men who are applying for the same roles have, because they've been discriminated against in the past. So if we need to kind of help them, then I think that's good.
Yes, maybe in the advertisement itself, we could say, the applicants will be anonymized for fair treatment for all. So that might encourage more women to apply, perhaps.
Maybe. I mean, as I say, so if you're recruiting for a role where someone needs 5 years experience, for example, it's going to be harder for women to have those 5 years experience, because it's more difficult for them to kind of get their foot in the door. So I think you do have to be careful, and I'm not saying I have exactly what the answer is, but it is quite hard, and you do have to think about it from that point of view. So there are lots of like work being done by businesses, including the place where I work at right now. So they have a group to empower and encourage women to kind of get in the roles that they want. And I think, you know, that's the thing that we need to do. And I mean, in the year and a half since I first kind of wrote this presentation, you know, things I think have improved to an extent, because there's a lot more visibility and a lot more kind of talk around it now. So I mean, that's definitely steps in the right direction.
Thank you.
Any other questions or queries?
I'm going to ask then, Chris. I know the IEP, we try quite a lot to do, well, not just to help women, we're also been looking at, you know, disabilities and things like that. But
Yeah.
what do you think the IEP could do more to help encourage women?
So, I mean, I do wonder if there's something that the IAP can do around a working group, because the IAP, you know, aims to represent software engineers from right across the spectrum. Right, we've identified that there's this one group, i.e., women who are underrepresented in the workplace. So, can we set up a group to bring more visibility to this group, to start to put on kind of more talks and perhaps mentoring to help women who are interested in a career in tech to kind of get that foot in the door. So maybe like as I say, a subgroup or something like that, who kind of thinks about this and does stuff on this all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure I can pass that. Well,
Cool.
Paul and I can pass that back to the exec team and see what
Okay.
they think. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, everyone else, by the way. I did mention, by the way, just then about our IEP coffee mornings. First Thursday of the month, 11 o'clock. I always send an email out. People are welcome to turn up. We don't necessarily have any subjects we talk about, but we usually end up finding something to have a natter about. It just breaks up that bit, particularly for people working from home. I did see that Tan turned up a little late, so we wouldn't have heard this, but I'll reiterate that probably sometime next week, it's probably the latter part of next week, because I've got a busy week next week, we'll do an edit of this and upload it to our YouTube channel, and you'll all get an email, A, thanking you for attending, B, if you could just let us know what you thought of the webinar and any suggestions for future ones. And it will also have a link to our YouTube channel. So, and if you search for the Institution of Analysts and Programmers, I think you'll find we turn up on there anyway. Thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome.
Great presentation. And thank you everyone else for attending. And we'll see what we can come up with for you for the next one.